Hey, welcome everyone to Port's interview. That is the really first interview ever that we are doing. And today I'm really excited to have our first guest, Stefan. Hey, Stefan, how are you?
Thanks, Sebastian. Thanks for having me. I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm fine, I'm fine. It's almost weekend, and it's almost spring, and yeah, I'm happy.
Right.
So, um, super cool. We will mainly talk about platform engineering today. I love you have really great views and you've write a lot of stuff around that. We will come to that. But first of all, can you do a quick and power intro of yourself?
Okay.
Tell me everything about you.
Okay. Thanks. I'm Stefan. I'm currently working at Snyk in the labs team. So we are exploring new product opportunities. We build them to expand our security platform into new markets. Um, I'm I started original as a web designer, but then I ended up coming and doing this for over 20 years by now. And my first computer I got in 1995. It was a family computer, and this was the starting point for a really interesting career so far.
Yeah. Do you? It is a question that I ask to everyone, when I'm on stage. Do you remember your first line of code that you wrote?
Well, I most likely typed it from a book, but it was for Macromedia Director, and it was to
Okay,
follow an object, the mouse, basically. I
okay,
remember
that's
that. It was a tutorial from a book, basically. And when I was 13, 14, something like that.
yeah,
And yeah, that was super interesting.
yeah. Do you remember the moment that there's writing the code and then executing and seeing the thing happen?
Of course, and
Uh,
it even better it compiled an executable for me. And this
oh,
was so interesting for me to see, okay, I have an executable binary that I can share with someone else, and it's not this project that people need to install some player and stuff like that. It felt right like a real software.
wow, yeah. So you could just share the binary with your friend and say,
Yeah.
"Hey, look what I've done!" And wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's super cool. And then a bit later on, let's continue discussing but because we talked a bit before, but I'm really interested in hearing your story. You have been into the modding space.
Yeah, as I
Of yeah. Go on.
I said originally I want to become a web designer, and somehow I ended up in the modding scene. So I worked on a Half-Life 2 mod for Resident Evil, and I was at the beginning responsible for the web design. Then I helped also building the website. Um, but then I also got exposure to project management because we were a bunch of kids from all over the world, and we had to organize ourselves. And not sure if Jira was a thing back then, but at least we didn't knew about it. So we built our own task tracker, and
Wow.
that was basically my first really ever dev tool I would consider. Um, and it was a interesting learning. I wasn't doing the programming myself, but I was doing layouts, design, and also thinking about what fields do we need and so on.
Yeah, that's awesome. What you say, you you built that tool with your friends because you really needed it, and you didn't even knew that ticketing system of tracking system existed,
Yes.
and yeah, so that's yeah. I have also the same story. When I was a kid, I built a software for my mother. She was a nurse and she was spending a lot of time of writing papers manually, and then I had an Amiga and I had a programming language called Amos, which was some kind of basic, but to build games. But I managed to create some kind of system, and a few years later, I realized that I, I created a database. But back in the time, I had no idea what a database was. But anyway, now that's a really cool, and just Half-Life 2 is the best game ever. So I just wanted to say that. I think you probably agree.
It's
I
super.
play it. Yeah, I replay it every year, and now my son is playing it as well. So I'm really proud. Okay, so that was we will talk a bit about platform engineering later, but a ticketing system, well, that is more or less the before platform engineering was a stuff. Um, but you have been also doing other great stuff. Let's talk about what you have the plugin. Well, can we talk about a plugin or an extension, browser extension
Yeah,
for GitHub?
yeah,
Yeah.
it was a browser extension for GitHub. Unfortunately, it's not working anymore because GitHub made quite some significant changes to the HTML structure, which makes it really challenging. But in 2013, I was learning Node.js and I was exploring package.json files on GitHub. And after a while, I noticed the pattern that I always copy the name of the package into Google or into GitHub just to find the corresponding repository in order to understand what does this package does. And then I can automate this. So I wrote the first version of the browser extension, which was linking NPM modules to the relevant GitHub repository.
Okay.
And then it just expanded from there, coverage for PHP, .NET, Java, everything. I think it was over 20 languages and tools. I maintained it with a few other maintainers for 9 years or so until GitHub made this significant change. But
Yeah.
it was a great project.
Okay. And you have been playing around a lot with GitHub. Maybe we can come back to this later. I saw some blog posts about that. Uh, but yeah, okay. So that was the beginning. Let's start talking about platform engineering, okay? Because that's the topic, and the funny thing is that platform engineering is we speak about that now for how many years? 3 years, something like that, or
Yeah,
more. That's
a little bit more, I think.
a
4,
little
5,
bit more, but
4, is it?
oh yeah, even 5. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But it's just since this year and last year that really everyone talks about it, and the funny thing is that what I realized is that a lot of companies were doing platform engineering even before they knew the term platform engineering.
Yeah.
And I've seen customers saying, "Hey, we want to do platform engineering," and they explain me a bit what they do, and I say, "But you're already doing it." Well, you can. Now things are getting better, more well defined, structured, but you are already doing that. So is that something that you notice as well
I
in your
did.
work?
I did. So in my previous company, when I started there in 2015, we deployed our application via Ansible. So it was basically in rsync, basically at the end. And then 2017 or something like that, we started to containerize our application, run it up in Kubernetes. And this was the time when I realized that it's not enough to be a good software engineer to understand the language and the libraries that you need to use. You also need to understand the entire ecosystem. Now with
Mm.
Kubernetes and cloud resources, it was just ever expanding the project landscape. And so I was fascinated by that because I realized that you can build an entire service yourself, or it could be maybe just a microservice with a few cloud resources, or maybe it's just a Lambda function that talks to an S3 bucket and with a pub sub, and that's it. So it's really important to understand the capabilities of a platform that it is providing you. And therefore, the engineering part does one thing. And therefore, you need also to think about how to actually enable engineers to figure out what is the best approach to solve the problem.
Oh yeah, totally. We can cover the adoption of platforms by developers, which is not an easy task. We both know that because we are both developers, and we know that developers to say it in a correct way, we are opinionated. So,
Yeah.
yeah, but, okay. Yeah, that's really interesting what you say. That slowly, because I remember when I started working back in 2004, I'm still a Java developer, and the only thing I had to do was writing code. Really, I was writing my code. I was committing that to CVS observation. I don't remember one of the two. And yeah, twice a year we had to go to production. So we had to make a build. That was my colleague next to me on his machine. He was doing the build directly from Eclipse, exporting an EAR file, and then he was putting that on a shared folder. It was for a big insurance company, and he was writing an email to the ops team. Hey, there's the the EAR file. Be careful because we are on Windows and on production it's running on a AS400, I think. So there's a slash and backslash issue that you need to fix before, and, and it was crazy. But we didn't really had it wasn't really an issue for us because we had one big monolith and it was going on production max twice a year. So we didn't really had those issues. And but then, as you say, slowly we had those cloud resources. People started to not having a monolith, but tens of services, microservices, which is in fact just distributed computing. And yeah, and slowly we had all those needs as a developer to understand, yeah, how to make a container. That seems obvious for a lot of people, but yeah, it's not something easy, I guess. And then yeah, how to push a workload to Kubernetes, how to make sure it's secured. Yeah, so many things, and yeah, so that's the main reason why platform engineering emerged. No, is that the main reason you think, or are there other reasons as
So
well?
the complexity of the systems definitely played a huge role because, as you were describing early in your career, it was just writing Java with 2 releases. This is vastly different from today's world where we ship multiple times a day. Therefore, you need to have a lot better tooling in order to support those new conditions. And yeah, this was for sure a big driver. So when we move from Ansible script to Docker and Kubernetes, we also went from we released on a 2-week cycle, but then we reduced it to weekly and then in the end daily and then multiple times a day. And
Multiple times a day.
yeah, and because before it was the responsibility of a handful of people who were able to do this deployment, but all of a sudden everyone was doing deployments, and therefore you also needed to gain provide them visibility into deployment. What is currently deployed, what will be deployed next, was it successful, where is it deployed, and so on. And this is where we started building our deployment dashboard. Back then, Backstage and nothing like that existed. So we built it all ourselves. And coming back to the question, the platform fee, there was no term like platform engineering back then. We just did the thing that we needed to make it work for other people. One term I remember from this time was glue code engineering, where you just stick together different softwares. And I felt like, yeah, this is the perfect description for myself because I was always interested in CI/CD pipelines, tooling in general. And so glue code engineering sound really great for me. And this is what we did, building this dashboard with the deployment visibility. And from there, it was super easy for us to go onto the platform engineering track, moving more and more stuff into this dashboard. And once Backstage came out, I was thinking, of course, I want to use Backstage because I don't want to mess with the login screen, simple paging. I want to build the core logic that makes the difference and not deal with routing and simple layout stuff and like this. So we moved our deployment dashboard into Backstage portal. And because it was already hugely adopted within the company before, our adoption with Backstage was a huge success. And from there, it was because people were visiting, they were forced to visiting the dashboard every time they want to deploy something.
Yeah.
Therefore, it was easy to us to expand to other capabilities to provide more functionalities to our consumers.
Yeah, really interesting. Yeah, and I love your glue code engineering. I even still use. I say providing valuable glue. That's what I'm telling sometimes when I'm talking about a port. Yeah, you got all those platforms, and we can provide valuable glue to bring them all together. Okay, great. So I we I won't ask you the question. Hey, what is the definition of platform engineering? Because we could spend the whole day. We all hear different things, and I think everyone is more or less right. Okay, because we. But can we talk about? And we already covered that a bit. At starting at which point can we start talking about platform engineering? Is it just I've set up my automation in CI/CD? Is that already? Can we already talk about platform engineering? I guess so. What is a base platform? Um, can we have more than one base platform? And so I'm interested in hearing your opinion on that. And I'm sure you have an opinion on that. So
Yeah, I covered this in one of my blog posts where I compared to Lego, and Lego is not giving you just Lego bricks. It gives you a Lego set with instruction and a rewarding feeling of having accomplished something meaningful at the end when you finish the build. And for software engineering team or for platform engineering team, it makes sense to provide building blocks early in the journey of a platform. But as you learn more about the needs of your consumers, then it makes sense to bundle those loose bricks into sets with great documentation so they can use them and build up on them.
yeah. I really love this. When we spoke a few weeks ago, you mentioned this analogy between Lego sets and Lego bricks, and you say, "Hey, people want Lego sets," and I love it. I'm using it since even in my talks because I love it. And it's funny because at Port we did a bit the same thing. In the beginning, we say, "Hey, we provide you all those building blocks," and the whole design was around blocks, and because it makes sense. But then also slowly we realized that a platform, and we can talk later about platform as a product. But yeah, we we realized that people wanted Lego sets because, and also it was because we have an open demo with a lot of sets already, and when they started using the product, they had a blank sheet, and they say, "But we want the same thing as in the demo. Do I have to build it myself? How can I build it?" So now we changed that a bit. We have a new onboarding flow where you say, "Hey, I want to use Jira, Kubernetes, GitHub," and we will create some sets for you already.
Mhm.
And just like Lego sets, the bricks are not the glue together. So if at any point you need to combine two sets or remove some stuff from a set or add some stuff to a set, yeah, it's still possible. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And this is also something I was thinking about when I was writing the blog post, that in Lego, you have a Lego catalog that shows you a small set that you can start building. It's cheap, it's easy to assemble, but it also gives you the vision how you can up with the 20 sets combined into a fantastic world where you can have a lot of fun playing with it. And so it's about not just giving you three similar sized sets. It needs to be a small set for this problem, then maybe a slightly larger set for an
yeah,
evolved system from the original system. So you need to be part of the journey basically of a service. When you start building it, you want to give them insights early on how the service is performing in production, and so you can evolve the platform with the service and the service with the platform.
yeah, exactly. So what you're saying is to build new sets, new assembles of blocks, it should not start from the platform, but it should start from seeing what is happening in production or what is happening upstream when the developers are starting developing a new project.
Yeah.
The need must always come from there and not originate from the platform, because there's a big chance that you will have a mismatch of the real needs of the developers. Is that?
Yeah, there's a great saying in tunnel construction where they say you need to dig a tunnel when you want to dig a tunnel. And what they mean, they dig vertical shafts to study the rock composition before starting with the main tunneling, because they can understand all the different geologic differences underneath, most likely. And the same needs to apply to platform engineering. So you need to spend a lot of time with your engineering team to understand what problems they are currently facing, how they solve the problems today, and how you can work together to build something meaningful.
Yeah, that's interesting. And in your opinion, imagine there's a platform team in your company. Is that the platform team that needs to do this research, or is it another team going around and then explaining to the platform team what is needed? I'm slowly touching here team topologies, with the enabling teams and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
um,
So at Snyk,
I
I was part of the developer experience team, which is a little bit confusing because Snyk is a dev tooling company. So whenever we talk about developer experience, people were confused: is it customer or the internal customer? And so
yeah.
I started liking talking about customers as external customers, and everyone else internal is just a consumer of the platform.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and let me. That's a great because you wrote a blog post about that, saying, "Hey, platform, get it here, platform engineers. Sorry, your developers are not your customers."
Yeah.
And I'm interesting to hear a bit more about it, because we always say you have to treat your platform as a product, and I agree on that, on having a well-defined domain, and but if you think product, you think customers, and here you're saying, hey, but your developers are not your customers. Can you expand a bit on that?
Yeah, it's really fascinating because the developers are the consumer of your product, and the actual customer is the business. So the business is the reason why your team exists in the first place. So they hired you and a bunch of other folks to solve business problems. The one business problem is maybe you have too many services that are too diverse from each other. So it's quite hard to maintain them and secure them.
Okay, let's continue on again on where does your platform start?
Yeah.
I will. uh, Could you tell me a bit how you've been using GitHub as your base platform? Um, I read two blog posts about you about that, where you are using the GitHub forms, I think, to create new issues, and you have been playing around automating that. Yeah,
Yeah.
tell me a bit about it.
I think it was before or around the time when Backstage came to existence, where GitHub released issue forms, where instead of having a free text field, you have a YAML file that specifies a form. So when people open a new issue, they get different input fields, and so you get more structured data. And we in this blog post, I'm sharing an idea where you can use this to basically do service creation from a GitHub issue. So what we did is when you open a new issue, you get asked the name of the service, you can select the template, and then it will basically run a GitHub action, which does a clone, creates a new repo, pushes this templated version into this new repo, and there you have your new service being created entirely from GitHub without having the need of building another platform.
Yeah, that's nice. So that's really the start of providing self-service flows, actions to your developers, and also to streamline it. I think that's also a really important point, to
And
to streamline the self-service offering.
yeah, and it also helps with the adoption of any IDP that you may struggle with. as said in my previous company, we were lucky because people were already using our deployment dashboard. But if you just come up with a net new dev portal IDP, then getting adoption is more challenging. And one of the places, when you walk around in the office and you look at the screens of devs, everyone has at least one GitHub app open. So most likely multiple. They go there all the time. So incorporating starting points into the platform experience from there just makes a lot of sense, in my opinion.
No. And it's a great topic, adoption. So, beside that, do you have some advices? Because what I often hear is I'm at a lot of conferences holding the booth of and speaking with platform engineers, and and I say, hey, how is it going with your platform? Yeah, great. How is the adoption? For some people, luckily, it goes really well. But for other people, yeah, they have really an issue with adoption. There are multiple causes. Sometimes they built a platform, but another team also built a platform, and there's some politics and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Um, or the developers feel too restricted to use the platform, and yeah, and then you have some shadow IT happening. So,
Yeah.
do what are your, yeah, if you can share some advice or some thoughts about that, will be awesome.
Yeah, there's this saying where they say if we build something amazing, team will want to use it, and this can be further away from the truth. It's really important to highlight what teams don't have to do anymore, so which burden it takes away. But you also need to highlight what they still can do, because they don't want to be locked in a box where they cannot do anything or be not flexible enough. So you need to sell both. Sell what people don't have to do, but what they still can do with your platform.
Yeah. That's a great challenge. When you build your platform, you can choose to be really opinionated, or really open. Uh, or but the risk with being opinionated is that you restrict it. But I think you can be opinionated and still provide escape hatches. That was from a book from Gregor Off, Platform Strategy. He has this concept of always provide escape hatches for your developers in your platform. And this way, if they feel stuck, there's still a way around it, and but it will stay on your platform as well. So I think that's a great concept.
Yeah, and another challenge is before your platform exists, you have their own kind of platform. Maybe it's just within their service, but at least they know the current stack, they know the tooling, they know how to solve problems. It might be not perfect, it might be ugly even, but at least they know how to deal with it. And giving up this giving up this familiar.
Don't worry, I have those words. For me, it's also familiarity. Oh
Yeah,
yeah, well, I have some words that are really hard for me to say in English, but don't worry,
yeah.
we're all in the same boat here.
So it might be not perfect. It might be even ugly, but they can deal with it. And giving up this
Yeah.
freedom is a big ask for teams. And you can help with trust. So you need to show them how they can trust your platform. But this trust needs to be earned over time. This is not something that you get from one to another day. So you need to start with maybe improving one piece of the pipeline, making this really great for them, show them how the platform actually takes away burden from them. You deal with it. And then the platform can naturally expand. It's not just about owning the solution. The solution might be Kubernetes to deploy more frequently. You really need to understand and own the problem, because then you are more agnostic, and then you can maybe provide different solution to different needs for the same problem. So one more concrete example with databases. most engineers don't like being a DBA. That's the reason why we have DBAs. But
Yeah.
a lot of services, they have a database, so it's quite challenging. And it's natural start. It's natural for the platform to start with abstracting away the DB in some YAML configuration so it can be easily provisioned. But this is just half the story. You need to also think about second days operation, how to upgrade
Oh, yeah.
this to a new version. And therefore, it's not enough to just own this configuration of the database. You also need to own part in the application, so the database client code. So maybe you want to provide a package for your teams in order to communicate with your database. So in theory, you can do upgrades under the hood without them knowing, because you deal with upgrading the database, but also upgrading the entire library. So it's really taking away burden from them to do those kind of things.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's when you build your platform, don't focus only on day one, because that's the easy one, and you only think
Yep.
about day one,
Yep.
and it's nice, it's cool, scaffold a new project. I can request a new managed database, but from the beginning you have to think about day two, because there is where the real thing happens, and yeah, that's a good one.
And about
Yeah,
day two, I think that's also really important to think about going the extra mile, because when you do something, for example, you want to roll out, this is a good example. You want to roll out a new standard. Let's say you want to
yeah.
start hacking stuff like this. You want to start hacking your cloud resources. You could now go to all the team and say, hey, please tag it. Here is the standard. Please do it yourself. But a better platform experience is where platform engineering team figures out how to provide this business need without talking to all consumers, to all the teams. So they own the problem end to end. So maybe they provide a PR that is automatically created in all the reports for the teams just to review and to confirm. But maybe they can go even further than that and just do the work under the hood, let's say, in a Kubernetes environment where you have your how it's called again, the I forgot how it's called. The admission controller. Admission
Oh, the
controller.
admission controller. Yeah,
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 where you can
yeah.
modify things, and then you maybe can insert team that is owning this service from another place. So you can entirely make this platform capability happen without team actually doing anything, actually knowing about that this actually happened.
Oh, yeah. No, I see. And what you say, how do we make sure that we can realign our platform to the developers or platform users? I prefer to say that because it's not only developers that will be using your platform in the end.
Mhm.
What are the ways to realign? How can you collect the feedback? Something that we are seeing is the more and more platform teams try to use surveys, and we build that in also in our product. You can easily create a survey, and that's the best way to collect feedback. Is that something that you saw as well, or are there any other ways to collect feedback? Yeah, for sure you can speak with your developers, but how can you make sure you get an objective feedback? Because if you
Yeah.
ask only one developer, you will get he's really opinionated.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the one in the team that don't like the platform, and yeah, that's a risk. So
Yeah. So what I like to do is keep a handful of engineers at close to myself, where I talk to on a regular basis. And those are engineers from very different stages. So it could be a principal engineer, it could be just a new joiner, a regular software engineer, and just have not weekly chats with them, but maybe once a quarter. And I
yeah,
feel like this gives you already a good enough signal. So you can still do surveys to get a large feedback from all the developers. but I feel like this is already, if you have 10 different engineers giving you feedback, this will definitely tell you an interesting story already.
Yeah, and I totally agree. And also for newcomers, so that's also an interesting aspect because um, they are not in the bubble of using the platform, and sometimes it's great. And I know at Google they even have a team called the empathy. I think they call it empathy engineering, where everyone that joins Google, even managers, C levels, part of the onboarding. They put them in front of a Chromebook, and I think they need to open a Google Cloud account and do some basic stuff. And there are product managers, engineers just walking around and looking at them how they experience that, and that's also something that that give you a lot of tips and insights. And I experienced that myself 2 weeks ago. I was giving a workshop of port, and people were using it for the first time, and it's awesome to be physical in the same room as them and seeing them um, not struggling that much, because port is also struggling a bit, but you can collect so many feedback just by having this empathy. Yeah.
Yeah,
And also asking them, what I also like is the friction logs. Do you know about friction logs?
I can assume what it is.
You can ask him what it is, but basically you ask someone to perform a really simple
Mm,
workflow or feature from your product,
mm,
and you ask him to record his screen, and for every
mm.
action that he takes, he should choose a color, green if it worked exactly as it
Ah,
was meant
okay.
to be, orange if it was, well, it was not that easy, and red if it doesn't work, or and this is really awesome. Then they send that back to the product team or engineering team, and the idea is that they will open themselves tickets to solve that instead of having the user opening tickets.
Ah,
The idea is that in the end, it's the own team that opens its own, because they realize some stuff that they didn't, because they were too much in the bubble, or
yeah, it's way too common. So we have a support channel for our internal developers. So whenever they stuck, they can go to this channel. And if you are in that channel for a while, then it's easy to see patterns. It's easy to recognize what people struggle with, and some stuff is easy to solve. Other it might be not, and people just learn how to deal with the quirks of your platform. But as you said, a new joiner doesn't know about all of this. So yeah, observing a new joiner using your platform is a really great opportunity. When I joined the Snyk Labs team, what we did something similar, but not for the internal platform, for our product itself. And yeah, we recruited people all over Snyk. So it was 5, 6 different people from HR, legal, software engineer, sales. And we had a session for an hour or so, and we pretended to be a new company. So we created a logo, we came up with a name.
Oh,
It's to
cool.
get into this role played activity. And this was super effective. We had a lot of fun, and we explored a lot of insights. And there's one rule: you don't use any jargon from Snyk or internal knowledge that you may gain. And whenever you spot
Yeah,
it, you can call out people. And doing with the role play, it was kind of easy because people, they were software engineers. They knew how to do a curl, but they pretended to
yeah.
not know how to do a curl regress. So it was really a
Awesome.
fun experience, and we learned so much stuff from it. So I can highly
Okay.
recommend.
Okay, that's a great recommendation. Yeah. Okay, cool. um, let's talk a bit about the future of platform engineering. Maybe we can talk a bit about that. Again, I think no one can guess where we will be going. Um, we have AI, of course, going strong, and we are trying to infuse. I like the term infusing our platform with AI. We start to see some great stuff. We are playing around as well at Port, and yeah, again, speaking about the Lego sets, what you can do also now with AI, the we have all those building blocks, and you can ask the AI, hey, I would like to have a new experience, developer experience around this flow, and he will be able to suggest you to come with some Lego sets.
Mm.
That yeah, yeah. And just to come back to Lego, it reminds me a few years ago, my son, he discovered an app on the phone, maybe you know that, where you
Yeah.
can take a picture of all your bricks. It's just
This
some.
one. Okay. Yeah.
You throw all the bricks on your floor. You take a picture, and then you suggest some sets that you can build with those bricks.
A flying pig, for example.
Yeah, yeah. But what do you think? In which direction are we going with platform engineering? Do you have any thoughts or
Yeah, with AI, it will definitely help platform teams to be more consumer centric. I was using AI a ton to just become a better PM for to understand how to user interviews, um, and stuff like this. Or even with, I tried to do it, also help with abstraction, how to do a great abstraction over on top of Kubernetes, for example. Uh, it looked great on the surface, but obviously you really don't want to use it uh, uh, use it straight away without modifying and studying it further. But it was a great addition in your toolbox, AI and platform engineering.
uh,
Yeah. And yeah, like
yeah,
any other dev team, it will allow them to try out new things more quickly. They can build prototypes and or write a new service quickly. Maybe a UI. This is something what I have seen, and that most platform teams consist of former DevOps engineers, so they are used to YAML engineering, maybe a little bit
yeah.
of software engineering in the backend, but as soon as it comes to front end, they really struggle with that. And
Okay.
AI and that can really help you to create a simple form where people can insert something.
Yeah, no, no, you're totally right. For you for UI, I'm as a developer advocate. I do a lot of demos on stage, and I'm a backend engineer, and I always struggled to create UIs. And now with AI, it's so great. I say, hey, I even can take a picture of. I draw the the web page that I want. I take a picture of it, and yeah, I get some great stuff because yeah, before that I was still doing jQuery because that's the only thing I master in UI, and it's still great. Yeah, and in this whole platform engineering, we talk about platforms, and you managed it a bit backstage. So let's talk a little bit about portals. Disclaimer: we at Port, we are an internal developer portal. Um, what's your opinion about portals? Is it a lot of people think it's just the UI part that you put atop of your platform? I think it's a bit more than that. It can federate. It can provide valuable glue to federate different platforms because could be your internal platform, but also all your SaaS products that your company consumes. I see it here. I still have tabs open for it from different SaaS providers. I think
Yeah.
Portal can provide some one glass of pain. So, what's your opinion about
Yeah.
portals?
A great IDP experience is something that every developer, everyone that is working on the product or using the product can consume whatever they need to consume. For a software engineer, a great platform allows you to explore and analyze usage pattern from your customers before building a new feature and before you had to go to BI tool to understand how to do all of this. Maybe if all is consolidated in IDP and there's an AI agent, and just ask, hey, how many people created a project in the past few days that is of this type of thing? And then you get the answer. And so you can shortcut and learn more quickly with the data that you have available. in the IDP. But it can also help with internal insights. So maybe you want to know how much your service is costing, how many other services are depending on your service. So in case you want to make a significant change, how many others need to be aware of this thing. Of course, security alerts. This is what you can do in Portal, right? You feed all the stuff, you feed all the information into the portal, and then you can do scorecarding and say, hey, you have 4 critical vulnerabilities in this project. You may want to take a look at it and fix it. And so it becomes this one shop for all your questions. And yeah, it's ideally an IDP is the tab that is open next to GitHub, in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. And since it's a portal, it's a UI. I'm still more and more thinking we have the term internal developer portal. But in my opinion, not only developers should use it. Maybe at one point it will be just internal portal. But is that an intranet? Are we going back to the intranet or to the internal wiki? It's funny. The IT is always cycles, but yeah. But I think everyone should be able to use your platform through the portal. Do you agree on that?
100%. And maybe it's not that you have everything integrated entirely in your IDP, but at least it's a starting point where you can find all the information, and from there you can go to the tools. For example, feature flagging. You don't want to rebuild your entire feature flagging system inside the portal, right? But at least you want to be able to navigate to the feature flagging system that you are using for the service. And this is what I see, how you can start building first IDP where you just provide all the links to all the things that people care about. So it's the dashboards, the run books, the documentation, the GR board. People know if they go there to this catalog page of this service, they know for certain they will find this information. And this is what this is what we did in Snyk, where we spent a little effort to open pull requests in all the repositories for all this. This is for we.
Yeah. No.
It's getting late. So again, so at Snyk we open pull requests in all the different repositories for our consumers to add links to the run book, to the documentation, to the GR board, to the Slack channel for the team, and so on. Now it's, if you go to a page, it's there.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. This concept of aggregating data, but it's not just what I like about platform engineering and portal is not just aggregating, taking the pieces together with no sense, but you can define a domain model that matches your platform, that makes sense for your platform. Stuff that doesn't belong together in the real world, a Jira instance and a deployment in Kubernetes. Well, you can bring it together in your portal, in your platform. That's something that I like. So I have also another opinion that I think it should belong in. It can belong in the portal, but the portal should reflect. Should reflect the base plat. My idea is your model should live in your platform. And in my opinion, it should be custom resource definition. I'm really opinionated on Kubernetes, but I think it should be Kubernetes, a set of operators and CRDs, and the CRDs should represent your platform domain model. And then your portal can reflect that. In port, we can point to any CRD and it will create the blueprints and etc. But that is what I'm trying to tell people. That's the ideal situation, but of course there are always situations or services this old legacy service that is really useful for your company, and there's no way to create a Kubernetes operator for it. You it's running in production. No one's there to touch it. It's but it's there and it's really useful. Then yeah, a portal can also be really useful to consume the data from there, and yeah.
Yeah, and it's not just about the legacy system that maybe you don't want to support because legacy reasons, but it's also about your platform is evolving. So there is a new tool coming up. Maybe today it's common to deploy workloads in Kubernetes or in a Lambda function. Who knows what it will be in 5 years' time? So your platform needs to adapt to constant change. So it's not about building one platform. You need to build how many platforms you need to serve your customers, and time will tell you. And therefore, you need to deprecate maybe an older version of your platform and bring on new capabilities in the future.
Okay, that's interesting. So basically, you're saying don't be afraid to create more than one platform. Uh, if it matches the needs, and
Of
don't
course,
focus too much on having one central IDP,
well,
because that will limit your.
as a platform engineer, I like one platform, of course, with
Yeah,
one
yeah, like
standard, with one programming language, and just 5 dependencies that everyone is using. But reality is far different from
yes,
that. So people using different languages, different packages. So even, for example, date formatting package, team A is maybe using this version, and another team is using a newer version, and the third team is maybe using a completely different package for the same functionality. And all of this makes platform engineering really challenging because the more diverse sets you have, the more difficult it becomes to do
oh
those
yes,
things that I mentioned earlier, where you want to go the extra mile, where you want to do the stuff on behalf of the customer. No, not on the behalf, for the customers, so they don't need to do it themselves. But if you need to take into account 5 different variations, then this becomes a lot more complicated. Of course, if you own those 5 different variations, then at least you have a better understanding of those different variations, and hopefully also the resources to deal with that. But by default, having diversity in a platform is challenging from a platform engineering point of view. So standardization is really helpful for the platform engineers, but it can be difficult for the consumers because they may want
but
to use this new shiny thing that you don't support.
exactly.
So finding this middle ground, this is the real challenge of platform engineering.
Yeah, yeah. I think we can conclude on this. Finding the middle ground is the real challenge of platform engineering. I like that. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Is there anything else you would? Yeah, we want to add to this. Or-
yeah. I just want to extend your conclusion that all software engineering teams want to do the right thing, but figuring it out all on their own is really time consuming and incredible hard because with all the different tools and features available. So platform
Yeah.
engineering is about making this process significantly easier, and not just by providing building blocks, but the platform should provide you with complete Lego sets that are well documented, ready to use, that team can trust, and most importantly, build up.
Well, yeah, yeah. I love that. Yeah, that sounds like a nice, nice conclusion. Um, I will share. Well, it will appear when I will edit the video, but I will share some links to to your blog. You write quite a lot of blog posts. Do you have any cadence, or do you impose yourself any cadence? Or?
Yeah, I was sick for the past 2 weeks, so I didn't have much time, but I have a list just with title of blog posts, and then whenever I feel like okay, now is the right time to
Yeah,
work on this, then I start working. So there's no real cadence, but I want to do more blogging, or at least I want to keep up because in the past it was like I was writing 3, 4, 5 blog posts over the course of a quarter or so, and then I stopped for the rest of the year. And
Oh
now
yeah,
at least I want to now be in the cadence of at least once a month or so.
yeah.
That be,
No, that's great.
yeah. And it's great to
Yeah.
share my learning and my perspective about platform engineering, and maybe it's useful for others.
Oh, sure. I love your blog post, and I will link them, and I suggest everyone to read them, and you will find back also the Lego set analogy and a lot of things that we discussed. You can find it back. Also, older blog posts where you mentioned how you are playing with the GitHub forms and stuff like that. So I will put that in the show notes. And okay, so yeah, we have been speaking almost for an hour, so yeah, that's great. We didn't knew in the beginning if it was for 20 minutes or 3 hours, but anyway, it was awesome to have you on the show. Thank you for your great insights and suggestion, advice, and opinions. That's really that's really what we want in those interviews, and yeah, and I still need to try your Half-Life 2 mode. I mentioned my son. I showed it to my son. I say, "Oh yeah, let's try it out." So I still need to try it out.
Yeah, it's just a demo. We never completed like a real mod. We never completed the mod itself because we
Yeah.
just run out of time after a couple of years trying to build this thing. But it still work, I think.
Okay, I
Mm,
will try it out, and I
yeah.
will let you know.
Thank
Okay. Hey, thank you so much, and hopefully see you around. And thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you
Bye
for
bye.
having me. This was fun.
Yeah, that was really fun. Bye.